Before the world learned her name, Persephone stood on the edge of a destiny no mortal could survive, and no goddess could escape. In the hush between sunlight and shadow, the first tremor of fate whispered her life into two. Before the first bloom of spring, before the sun dared to touch the frozen soil, there existed a girl whose footsteps could awaken life and whose gaze could command shadows. Persephone, daughter of light and sorrow, walked between two worlds, one of vibrant blooms and laughter, the other of endless echoes and quiet despair. And on this day, the wind carried a whisper, a secret older than the stars themselves, that her destiny would not remain bound to the warmth of sunlight, nor to the cold of the underworld, but would rise, radiant and terrible, to claim both. Persephone's laughter, soft and musical, mingled with the gentle rustle of newly unfurling leaves. The meadows stretched endlessly, a mosaic of wildflowers painted by the unseen hand of spring itself. Every petal trembled at her approach, every blade of grass seemed to bend in greeting. Even the bees and butterflies moved in patterns that suggested a silent choreography, as if the world itself anticipated her touch. Yet, beneath the joy of sunlight, a shadow lingered, delicate, almost imperceptible, threading through the warmth. It was not fear nor danger, but a whisper of something unseen, something calling her name from places she had never been. Persephone paused at the edge of a crystalline brook, listening. Persephone. The voice was like the wind sifting through ancient ruins, soft yet insistent. Her heart fluttered, half in excitement, half in unease. She knew the forests, the rivers, the golden fields. Yet never had she felt this pull, this weight of a destiny that reached beyond earth, beyond the gentle embrace of her mother, Demeter. Demeter, radiant as the morning sun, approached, her presence grounding yet urgent. "My daughter," she said, her voice like warm honey, "the world thrives in your laughter, but there are whispers in the shadows. You are no longer just the child of spring." Persephone turned, her eyes reflecting the sapphire sky, the emerald woods, and something deeper, a growing awareness she could not yet name. "Mother," she said softly, "what do you mean?" Demeter's gaze fell to the earth, tracing invisible lines in the soil. "There are paths you were born to walk, paths that will lead you into darkness, and yet, through that darkness, you will bring life." Persephone's fingers grazed the water, ripples spreading like silver threads. Paths that lead into darkness. The idea shivered through her veins. She had heard tales of shadows, of Hades and the underworld, but they were stories told to children. Stories until they are not. Suddenly, a chill wind swept through the meadow, startling the birds into flight. The brook's surface shimmered unnaturally, reflecting not the sky above, but a vast cavernous darkness beneath. Her breath caught. The shadows seemed alive, and in their depths she glimpsed a figure, a king cloaked in night, watching, waiting, his eyes twin abysses that drew her in with impossible gravity. Her heartbeat thrummed like a drum of warning. Something ancient, patient, inevitable stirred in the world. Persephone realized, with both fear and wonder, that her life, her laughter, her blooms, her sunlight, was on the precipice of a shift she could not yet comprehend. And then, the whisper returned, closer now, more insistent, "Come and know what it means to be queen." The meadow, once alive with spring's warmth, seemed to hold its breath. Birds froze mid-flight, flowers paused in their opening. The sun flickered as though uncertain whether to shine. Persephone felt a tug in her soul, a pull between the warmth she had always known and the mysterious darkness that called her name. Her lips parted to speak, to ask who, to demand, yet no sound came. The wind swirled, carrying petals and whispers together in a spiral that beckoned her forward. Her curiosity, fierce and unyielding, overcame fear. Persephone took a single step toward the shadowed brook, the line between light and darkness blurring beneath her feet. And at that precise moment, the world seemed to exhale. A deep tremor rolled through the earth, a sigh of something awakening. The shadowed figure's eyes gleamed like stars swallowed in midnight, and for a heartbeat, the boundary between the life she knew and the power she was yet to claim shattered. Persephone's journey had begun, not with a scream nor a battle, but with a whisper, a ripple in the world, and a choice that would echo across realms. To follow the light, or to step into the shadows. The moment Persephone stepped beyond the last petal of spring, the world changed its breath. Darkness stirred beneath her feet, watching, waiting, hungry for the light it had been denied for an eternity. The wind that had whispered her name now became a chill that ran through her bones. Persephone stood at the edge of the forest, where sunlight dared not linger, and the earth beneath her feet seemed to tremble with secrets older than time itself. A shadow stretched across the meadow, darker than midnight, yet alive, pulsing with a quiet, terrible heartbeat. It beckoned her, pulling her forward with an invisible thread. Persephone's fingers brushed the edge of a sun-dappled leaf, then let it go, as though surrendering to the unknown. "Come," the whisper returned, softer than silk, sharper than a blade of frost. She stepped forward, and then another step, and the world changed. The sky above dimmed, not with clouds, but with a strange, liquid darkness that seemed to swallow color itself. Trees arched overhead like silent sentinels, their leaves turning silver in the eerie light. The brook she had known shimmered once, then vanished, leaving only a mirror of obsidian, reflecting a world she had never seen. A doorway of roots and stone yawned before her, a cavern of shadows breathing slow and deep. She hesitated, heart pounding like twin drums in her chest. And then, as though the air itself had grown thick with expectation, she crossed the threshold. The underworld was alive in ways the mortal world could never comprehend. Rivers of liquid night flowed silently, carrying the whispers of lost souls. Trees of blackened bone reached skyward, their branches trembling with memories of lives long past. From the shadows came shapes, faint, wavering. Human and not human, who watched her approach with a mixture of reverence and curiosity. And then he appeared, Hades. Not the monstrous tyrant of whispered tales, but a figure of regal darkness, sculpted as if from midnight itself. His eyes, twin voids that contained storms and silence, met hers. For a heartbeat, the world held still. The rivers ceased their flow, the whispering trees stilled, and even the air seemed to wait. "Persephone," he said, his voice both thunder and sigh, "you have come." She did not speak. Words felt inadequate, as if her voice would shatter in the presence of something so vast, so inevitable. Yet her gaze met his unflinching. She felt the pull of his power, the gravity of the realm he commanded, but also, strangely, the echo of loneliness and longing, a mirror to her own heart. Why am I here?" she finally whispered. "Because," he said, stepping closer, "this world and yours are entwined. You belong to both, but only one can truly claim you. Will you be the light that blooms in the darkness, or the darkness that rules the light?" Persephone's breath caught. The words were a promise and a challenge, a question that trembled in her very soul. The shadows swirled around her, alive with anticipation, and for the first time she understood that the choice would not be simple. and then a sudden sound, a low, mournful wail, echoed from the river. Shadows recoiled, shapes twisting and flickering as a spirit rose from the obsidian waters. Its eyes were hollow, yet full of memory and pain, and it reached toward her, silently pleading. Persephone felt the weight of her duality pressing upon her, the warmth of earth, the pull of life, and the seductive, solemn power of this shadowed realm. Her fingers trembled, yet her heart was steady. She had not yet embraced her destiny, but the first spark had been lit. Hades extended his hand, not in threat but in invitation. "Step forward," he whispered, "and see what it truly means to be queen." Persephone's eyes lifted to the voided sky, where no sun shone, yet stars flickered with secret light. And then, with a courage she did not yet name, she stepped into the darkness. The world of light behind her shivered and faded, and the underworld opened its arms, vast, eternal, and alive. In that instant, she was no longer only the maiden of spring. She was becoming something greater, something both radiant and terrible, a force that would bind life and death, shadow and bloom, into a single, unbreakable truth. And somewhere, deep in the veins of the earth, the whisper lingered. Persephone, queen of two worlds. Deep beneath the earth, where time forgets its own heartbeat, Persephone awakened to a realm woven from night itself. Every shadow knew her name, long before she spoke it. The underworld does not announce itself. It waits, patient, eternal, a realm that breathes in shadows and exhales silence, and when it chooses to speak, it whispers in a language older than stars, a language that touches the marrow, the soul, the unspoken corners of a heart. Persephone heard it, and in that moment she understood the world she had known, with its golden fields and laughter, had been only a prelude. The true story, the one that would be sung by rivers, forests, and shadows alike, was just beginning. The air here was thick, yet strangely fragrant, like soil after rain mixed with the faint sweetness of flowers that dared to bloom in darkness. Every step Persephone took resonated against unseen stone halls, a rhythm that seemed to echo in the very bones of the underworld. Shadows stretched and twisted around her, forming shapes that flickered between memory and imagination. A soft glow appeared ahead, not sunlight nor fire, but something that pulsed with life itself, silver and alive. Shapes moved in the glow, spirits of those long forgotten, wandering with purpose, watching, waiting. Their eyes told stories of sorrow, joy, regret, and longing. Persephone felt a strange connection to them, as though their memories were threads woven into the tapestry of her soul. Hades followed silently, his presence like a dark melody, steady and commanding. "They are watching," he said, his voice a mixture of wind and shadow. "They will judge you, as all must, but do not fear their eyes. Fear only your own hesitation." Persephone's hands clenched instinctively. Hesitation. She realized the underworld did not merely demand obedience. It demanded understanding, mastery, and the courage to embrace both light and shadow within herself. A figure approached from the silver mist, taller than any mortal, with robes that shimmered like liquid night. Its eyes glimmered with the reflection of countless stars, and its voice was both a song and a lament. "You are the bridge, the bloom in darkness, the queen yet unclaimed. Choose wisely, child of two worlds, for every choice shapes the tides of life and death alike." Persephone felt the weight of the prophecy press upon her shoulders, yet also a strange thrill. Life had always flowed through her, a river of laughter and growth. Yet now she sensed a power that had slept, waiting for the moment of awakening. The river of shadows beside her rippled, and from its depths emerged a spirit, neither human nor beast, but a creature of grace and sorrow, with wings like folded night and eyes that mirrored her own. It spoke without words, yet she understood its meaning. The underworld is alive, and it will test you. Suddenly, the glow around the river intensified, and the spirits began to swirl in a silent, circular dance. Persephone felt the pulse of life and death, darkness and light, mingling within her chest. Her heart beat in sync with the rhythm of the realm itself. Hades' hand extended toward her again. "Will you take it?" he asked softly. "The power, the crown, the knowledge that comes only to those who walk both worlds?" Persephone looked down at the river, then into the swirling shadows. And in that instant, a single truth crystallized in her mind. She was no longer merely a daughter of spring, nor a reluctant visitor to darkness. She was becoming the queen, and the world would bend to the harmony she could create between light and shadow. Her lips curved into a faint, determined smile, and as she stepped forward, the shadows parted, revealing a path carved of silver mist, leading deeper into the heart of the underworld. Every spirit, every whisper, every ripple of darkness seemed to bow, in anticipation of the moment she would claim her throne. Persephone, queen of two worlds. The journey had truly begun, and the world, both above and below, would never be the same. When the doors of the underworld closed behind her, the silence rang like a prophecy. Light no longer reached her, but destiny did, and it came wearing a crown of obsidian fire. The underworld does not forgive the hesitant, it does not comfort the timid. Every step taken here echoes for eternity, and every choice carves the path of destiny. Persephone had entered not merely as a visitor, but as a force that would awaken the sleeping powers of life and death alike. And in the silence of the shadowed halls, the first trial waited, patient, inevitable, and alive. The mist curled around her ankles like living smoke, carrying with it the scent of lost time and forgotten dreams. Shapes drifted just beyond sight, flickering in and out of perception. Spirits curious, wary, and sometimes angry. They whispered in a language she could feel rather than hear, a rhythm of longing and despair. Hades walked beside her, silent yet omnipresent, his cloak brushing the obsidian floor like a dark wave. "The first trial," he murmured, "is not of strength nor of skill, but of understanding. You must face what dwells in the shadows, not merely around you, but within you." Persephone's pulse quickened. She had always known darkness only as absence, as a void between light. Now she felt it pressing against her heart, curling into her thoughts, revealing truths she had not dared to speak aloud. A spiral of black mist rose before her, coalescing into a figure, half woman, half shadow, with eyes like hollow mirrors. It spoke in a voice that was hers and yet not hers. "Do you fear me, child of spring? Will you deny the darkness within?" Persephone stepped closer, her reflection shimmering across the figure's hollow gaze. She did not flinch. "I do not deny it," she said, voice steady. "I will learn from it, as I have learned from the light." The shadow laughed, a sound like silver bells breaking against stone. Few have the courage to speak such words. Fewer still can live them. And then the ground beneath her trembled. The spirits around them rose in a silent storm, swirling like smoke caught in windless air. The shadowed figure lunged forward, and Persephone felt the pull of every fear she had ever held. Isolation, loss, powerlessness, the cold grip of death itself. Yet, in that fear, a spark ignited. The warmth of life, the laughter of spring, and the pulse of growth rose in her chest. She raised her hands, and flowers bloomed in the obsidian air, silver petals drifting like snowflakes over the shadows. A river of silver light surged from her feet, parting the darkness, illuminating the trial before her. The shadow recoiled, whispering, "So, you are more than a child of spring. Perhaps a queen in the making." Persephone exhaled, realizing that the trial had not been a confrontation with the shadow, but a confrontation with herself, her fears, her doubts, her hesitation. She felt a tremor of pride, tempered with humility, as she realized that mastery of both worlds would require courage, compassion, and clarity. Hades' eyes gleamed in the half-light. "Well done," he said. "This was but the first test. The underworld is patient, but it is not gentle. Many will try to sway you, to bind you, to fear you. You must remain steadfast, yet open. Do not merely walk the path, command it." Persephone nodded, stepping forward. Behind her, the silver river flowed, reflecting both light and shadow, a mirror of her own duality. Each step was a promise. She would learn, she would endure, and she would rise. Not just as a daughter of spring, not just as a guest in the underworld, but as queen of two worlds. The spirits stirred around her, whispers growing into a chorus, a song of anticipation and challenge. And from the deepest shadows, something moved, a shape larger, more ancient, eyes burning like molten stars, waiting. Persephone felt the pull in her chest. The next trial would not be gentle, it would not forgive hesitation, and in that quiet, terrible moment she understood the truth of her destiny. To rule, she must embrace all, the bloom, the shadow, the sorrow, and the light. Some powers sleep beneath worlds, older than gods, older than sunlight. They stir only when destiny shifts, and Persephone's awakening had begun to change the shape of eternity. The underworld grew quieter as Persephone walked deeper into its heart. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of attention. Every stone, every shadow, every drifting soul watched her now, as though they sensed something rising within her, something that did not belong to the world of mortals or gods alone. Hades remained a few steps behind her, allowing her to lead this time. His expression was unreadable, not cold, not warm, but curious, like a king witnessing the first glimmer of a new power that even he had not anticipated. The path narrowed into a corridor of towering black pillars, carved with runes so old they seemed alive, pulsing faintly like slowed heartbeats. Persephone trailed her fingers along one of them. The stone shivered as if touched by warmth it had long forgotten. "Here," Hades said softly, "is where most falter." Persephone lifted her chin. Then, "I will not." She stepped forward alone. The ground shifted. The pillars breathed. A low hum filled the air, not sound, but vibration, like the universe remembering an ancient note. Then the darkness before her unfolded. Slowly, massively, deliberately, a colossal figure rose from the shadows, draped in tattered veils of night, crowned with rings of ancient starlight, its face a shifting mask of forgotten constellations. Its eyes glowed with molten gold, older than Olympus, older than the Titans. This was the Ancient One, the first judge of souls, the sleeper beneath all realms, the voice of eternal memory. And it had awakened for her. Persephone felt the weight of its gaze, heavy, cosmic, intimate. "You," the Ancient One rumbled, its voice like mountains collapsing under water, "are not what they foretold." Persephone's breath trembled, but she did not step back. "Then tell me what I am." The Ancient One leaned closer, its immense form bending as if the universe itself bowed to examine her. You carry spring in your veins, but your shadow does not fear winter. You walk with life, yet death welcomes your footsteps. You are contradiction and harmony, a door where none existed, its eyes narrowed into twin suns. You are becoming. Persephone felt heat, not warmth, not fire, but the heat of creation, the heat of stars being born. It surged through her chest, radiating into her hands. Flowers began to bloom in the air again, but this time they were not gentle spring blossoms. These were flowers of starlight, petals like nebula dust, stems woven from silver fire, blooms that belonged to neither world fully. The Ancient One's voice shook. You create from both light and shadow. The air tightened. Hades inhaled sharply behind her. Persephone looked at her hands, glowing with life and death intertwined like twin rivers. I create, she whispered, from everything I am. The Ancient One's form flickered, not in weakness but in awe. Then the balance will shift, it murmured. The world of the living will feel your pull. The world of the dead will answer your call. Fate will tremble at your touch, and the gods. Its voice fell to a chilling whisper. The gods will not forgive what they cannot control. Persephone's pulse hammered. For the first time, fear tasted like fire, not ice. Do you challenge me? She asked. No, the Ancient One said. I warn you. Because what sleeps deeper still awakens when queens rise. The pillars shook violently. The runes blazed. The underworld's air quivered, as though bracing for something vast, ancient, and unstoppable. Persephone stepped backward, instinctively searching for Hades, but he stood frozen, eyes locked on the Ancient One, as if hearing secrets meant only for kings of old. The Ancient One's enormous shadow expanded, stretching across the chamber, across the pillars, across the very air, swallowing even light. Remember this, child of duality. Its golden eyes burned brighter, consuming the darkness around them. The crown you seek is not the crown you will inherit. A shockwave burst outward. The pillars cracked, the ground split. A storm of shadows exploded upward like a dark sunrise. Persephone shielded her face as the Ancient One dissolved into a vortex of starlit darkness. When the storm cleared, only silence remained. Heavy, thrumming, unsettled. Hades stepped beside her, his voice low. Persephone, something old has awakened because of you. Her heartbeat steadied. Then let it awaken, she said. I am not afraid. But she was, not of the Ancient One, not of the trials. She feared the truth behind its final words, the crown she would inherit, the destiny she did not yet understand. The air itself trembled, as if the heavens and the underworld had exhaled together and all creation held its breath. Persephone felt it in her bones, the threads of life and death weaving around her, tightening, twisting, demanding surrender and mastery at once. Destiny was no longer a whisper. It was a roaring tide, and she, the Maiden of Spring and Queen of Shadows, stood at its crest. One step, one choice, and the balance of worlds would bend forever, to bloom or to shatter. The air itself trembled, as if the heavens and the underworld had exhaled together, and all creation held its breath. Persephone felt it in her bones, the threads of life and death weaving around her, tightening, twisting, demanding surrender and mastery at once. Destiny was no longer a whisper, it was a roaring tide, and she, the Maiden of Spring and Queen of Shadows, stood at its crest. One step, one choice, and the balance of worlds would bend forever, to bloom or to shatter. The underworld pulsed with anticipation, a heartbeat of shadow echoing in every stone and spirit. Rivers of obsidian rippled. carrying whispers of lives long past. The walls of the cavern seemed to shift and breathe, as though the realm itself had grown conscious of her presence. Hades remained beside her, a silent sentinel, his eyes reflecting both pride and uncertainty. "It is happening faster than I imagined," he murmured, his voice low, almost lost in the quivering hum of the world around them. Persephone lifted her hands, feeling the invisible threads that connected her to everything: the living forests above, the sleeping dead below, the delicate bloom of flowers, and the heavy decay of shadow. With every pulse, she could sense the worlds bending, converging, waiting for her to decide how they would flow. Then, from the deepest shadow, a storm of light erupted. Silver petals spun like stars caught in a hurricane, and shadows twisted, responding to her will. Persephone's breath caught. Her dual nature, the life she carried and the darkness she commanded, was awakening fully, humming with a power that made the pillars shiver and the spirits bow in awe. A voice, older than mountains, older than time, resonated through the chamber. "The worlds converge because of you. Choose, child of two realms, for your decision will shape both life and death, bloom and decay forever." Persephone's gaze hardened. She had come to the underworld as a girl of spring, and now she was rising as a queen. She knew fear, but she also knew purpose. The Ancient One's warning, the trials, the whispers of spirits, all of it had led to this moment. Her feet moved forward of their own accord, steps leaving trails of silver light and shadowed bloom. The river of darkness swirled around her, testing, probing, demanding acknowledgement of the power she held. Hades' hand rested lightly on hers. "You must embrace both, Persephone," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Do not fear the shadow. Do not deny the light. Only together do they grant dominion." Persephone closed her eyes, letting the rhythm of the realms guide her. She felt the pulse of life, the sigh of death, and the song of existence itself weaving into a symphony within her. Then, opening her eyes, she extended her arms, letting the forces converge around her like twin storms meeting at the horizon. The cavern trembled. The spirits cried out, some in awe, some in fear. Light and darkness collided, not as enemies but as dance partners, swirling, twisting, and finally harmonizing. From this union emerged a new bloom, neither of earth nor underworld, but hers, radiant, terrifying, undeniable. Hades looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You have begun." Persephone's lips curved in a calm, unyielding smile. She understood now. To rule both worlds, she must be both light and shadow, the bloom and the decay, the life and the death, the daughter and the queen. And somewhere, in the infinite veins of the underworld, a whisper carried through every shadow and stone. "Persephone, queen of two worlds, the balance has shifted." But as the echoes faded, a deeper, colder vibration stirred beneath the caverns, older than the Ancient One, more relentless than fate itself. Something was waking, something that had waited eons for her rise. The next step would demand everything: courage, wisdom, and sacrifice, and the worlds held their breath. Some truths sleep in the marrow of the world, untouched by gods, unseen by mortals. They awaken only when a queen rises, when life and death collide, and when a child of light and shadow dares to claim what was never meant for her. Persephone felt it now, in every heartbeat, in every breath. The final test awaited, and the world itself trembled for her answer. The cavern before her had shifted. No longer mere stone or shadow, it was a living organism of darkness and light intertwined, walls pulsing like lungs, rivers of obsidian and silver weaving together in impossible patterns. The Ancient One's warning echoed in her memory. The crown you seek is not the crown you will inherit. From the deepest, blackest river emerged a figure, taller than even the Ancient One, wreathed in darkness that devoured light itself. Its eyes burned with a fire older than time, and its voice rumbled like a storm beneath the earth. Child of two worlds, you are here, yet not complete. Will you claim the crown that binds life and death, or fall beneath the weight of your own duality? Persephone's hands glowed with silver blooms, her shadow stretching behind her like wings of smoke. She stepped forward, feeling the pulse of both worlds within her, the warmth of sunlight, the chill of shadows, the laughter of spring, the silence of eternity. "You cannot frighten me," she said, voice steady, resonant, carrying the authority of both realms. "I am neither light nor dark alone. I am both. I am the bloom in shadow, the shadow in bloom. I am Persephone, queen of two worlds." The figure lunged, shadows swirled, rivers twisted, and the very air seemed to shatter. Persephone stood her ground, letting the dual power within her surge, silver and black, light and shadow, life and death, twisting into a single, unstoppable force. The cavern trembled, stones cracking and spirits wailing in awe. From her chest rose a melody, soft, musical, and terrible, a song of creation and destruction, a rhythm older than gods themselves. Her bloom of silver fire spread, wrapping the figure, binding it not with force, but with understanding. "You are balanced," the ancient voice finally said, tremulous, almost reverent. "You are the bridge, the harmony, the queen." And then, with a final pulse of power, the darkness recoiled, folding into itself, leaving Persephone alone in the heart of the underworld. Hades stepped forward, eyes shining with pride and something deeper, awe. "You have done it," he said softly. "You have embraced both worlds. You are the queen, the balance itself." Persephone looked around. The spirits stirred, not in fear, but in homage. The rivers shimmered silver and black, flowing together in harmony. Even the pillars hummed, resonating with the power of her awakening. Yet, beneath it all, a whisper lingered, faint, patient, and knowing. "This is only the beginning, Persephone, but now the worlds bend to you." Her lips curved into a serene, unyielding smile. She had faced the ultimate test, harmonized light and shadow, life and death, and stepped into her true power. She was no longer the maiden of spring. She was not merely the guest of the underworld. She was queen, sovereign of both realms, a force the universe itself would remember. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of mortal eyes, the cosmos shifted, acknowledging her rise. Persephone extended her arms, feeling the pulse of both worlds, letting it flow through her like a song that would never end. The underworld bowed, the earth flourished, and the queen, radiant, terrible, unstoppable, had claimed her crown. When the veil between worlds finally settled into harmony, the universe held its breath, for the queen who had once been divided now shaped creation with every silent step. Where Persephone walked, destiny itself awakened, and both realms bloomed in her shadow. The first dawn after the new covenant rose like a whispered blessing. High above, the mortal world awakened beneath a sky brushed with rose-gold light. Fields, once dormant, now shimmered with dew like scattered pearls. Every blossom, the humblest crocus to the proudest lily, unfurled with a softness that felt almost reverent. And far below, in the underworld's deep, eternal twilight, something impossible was happening. Light, faint, silver, and melodic, began to weave itself through the obsidian air, not harsh, not foreign, but gentle, like someone teaching darkness how to breathe. Persephone walked between the realms, and both answered her. Her footsteps on the earth trailed ribbons of emerald green. Birds circled in spirals of song as if greeting their queen anew. Her footsteps in the underworld awakened soft, luminescent flowers, blooms shaped like constellations, petals glowing with quiet fire. Spirits paused in their drifting to watch her, feeling warmth they had forgotten. Two worlds, one pulse, one queen. She stood at the boundary, a horizon where dawn kissed shadow, and lifted her hands. From her palms flowed a soft, shimmering bloom of magic that spiraled upward like a celestial waltz. The light split gently into two rivers, one golden, one silver. They arced like twin comets before descending into their respective realms. Life and death, spring and shadow, earth and eternity, balanced, united, harmonized. Hades stepped beside her, but at a respectful distance, not as a ruler claiming power, but as a guardian honoring a sovereign. His dark presence softened in her glow. Two worlds flourish because of your heart, he said. Both worlds flourish because of your rule, she replied, her voice soft as falling petals. And somewhere far beyond them, the fates paused their weaving, astonished that even the threads of destiny could learn a new pattern. Persephone turned toward the horizon. A soft smile touched her lips. For the first time in history, the worlds did not pull her apart, they lifted her. Above her, the sky shimmered with dawn. Below her, the underworld shimmered with silver night. And at the center of the cosmos stood a queen, not divided, not claimed, but complete. Persephone, bringer of spring, keeper of shadows, queen of two worlds. And so the worlds found balance, blooming together under the gaze of a queen who was both light and shadow. Persephone's song lingered in rivers, in forests, in the quiet spaces between stars. Life and death danced, not as enemies but as companions, and the realms knew peace, at least for now. The story of the maiden who became queen would be whispered across eternity, a reminder that courage, love, and understanding can bridge even the deepest divides. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, new adventures waited, shimmering in the light of possibility. If Persephone's journey through light and shadow moved your heart, let her story echo further. Please like, share, and subscribe, so others may witness the rise of the Queen of Two Worlds. Join us as the realms continue to stir, and discover tales where myth and wonder dance together, waiting to bloom anew.